Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to the theScore eSports podcast. I'm your host, Colin, as per usual. Behind the boards, we got Josh.
You always go to me first, and it freaks me out. I thought you were going to go to Dan. But
Yeah.
He always goes to you for a second, though. It's alphabetical order.
It wasn't. It actually wasn't last time.
Wasn't it? I don't remember anything that we do 5 minutes after we do it.
And to my left, we got Dan Rosen, my co-host.
Hi.
Today on the show, we have an awesome guest from the world of CS. We've got former and occasional still pro player, streamer, analyst, beard aficionado, Jordan Gilbert, a.k.a. n0thing. Let's bring him on, Josh.
Hello, Jordan.
What's up, fellas? Can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. How you doing, man?
Wonderful. I got my flower and cat cup here from my mother. I was just watching MIBR take down the boys over at Mao's on the first map, and it was an interesting match. And then I had a little emergency. I went over to help my neighbor feed his dogs, and there's some medicine he needs to take, and they're out of town. They forgot to give it to him, so it was a hectic rush right before the podcast.
Damn, your morning's been crazy already.
Nothing too out of the ordinary, I'm just saving some lives.
That's all in a day's work for n0thing. So when it comes to that Mao's MIBR match, I gotta ask you, where do your allegiances lie? Because you've got ties to both now.
Well, at this point, probably more the Mao's guys, which is a hilarious statement to make. I mean, there's not really, a big allegiance. I know you guys are saying, though. Yeah, those guys are fun to play with. I became friends with them pretty fast. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't, Stu and Tarek, well, especially even the Brazilian guys. I've played against Fallen since 2009. And so I never hate on those guys hard. I always wanted to beat them. And when they moved to NA, I always wanted to kind of be ranked ahead of them. But it's kind of just, especially in the position I'm in now, where I'm not retired, but I'm not actively competing. It's funny because it's I just feel in this gray area where I don't really care. Not because I don't care about the scene, but I don't really care about what happens in a lot of matchups. Just because it's all I'm really hoping for is the scene to continue showing good competitive matches. So the only thing that does suck is when teams are falling apart or not putting on a good performance or something. But in this case, I hope Mouse comes back for second map, man. 16-6 on Mirage ain't a good look.
Not at all. Not at all. Now, speaking of Mouse, I was going to ask you this later in the podcast, but this ended up being a pretty good segue. I saw a clip with ropz saying that you were kind of a guy he looked up to, that he'd been watching your frag movies since age 7 or something ridiculous like that. How does that feel?
No, that was really cool. I mean, I was talking to him about it in person, and I was realizing as he was saying it, how old he is. I'm there's no way you really knew what was happening in the scene, but he still watched my videos. So it's cool that even for people who aren't coming up at the time when I released Nothing But Headshots or all these different frag movies that I did and all that hype, even people who weren't coming up were getting inspired. So even now, there might be some 12-year-old or something that comes in late to the scene who's just an animal, and it's always neat to see how that trickle-down effect kind of inspiration, because the same thing happened to me when I watched K-Sharp and Fraud early on. I was dude, these guys are on boxes, they're playing a game all day, they're this, they're that, and so it was cool to play on a stage with him. He's like a little shroudy, he's insane, so it was fun to play next to someone like that and kind of give him a couple words hey, by the way, I hope you know you're I should be looking up to you now, you're an animal. And he's so it was cool.
What was he like around you? Because if there's a little bit of maybe hero worship going on, was he nervous or anything?
I mean, he said the first time he says hi, I guess he's a little quiet because he's a younger kid. But I guess one thing that I did pretty quick, and I try to do with most teams I play with, is just kind of loosen up the way I talk around people, loosen up, maybe kind of throw in little bits about myself, just kind of bring the camaraderie out in kind of an organic way. And what I noticed really quick about Robin is in the practice room, he's kind of like a Shroud. No one really sees this side of him. You see it a little bit more now at Shroudy streams, but once he gets around his friends and kind of like you're hidden in a room with Mike, or in this case Robin, they start getting really random, and kind of like that little childlike energy comes out when you're about to play a game. He starts throwing shit at his teammates and making weird noises and stuff. So Robin was a similar case where he's a funny kid. He's 18 years old from Estonia. He's just traveling the world rocking his little Yeezys and stuff. He's just a funny guy. He just wants the game. And what was cool actually about him and the other guys is Chris J and him the most probably. They kind of like to clown around in the practice room, and I vibed really well at that because I was telling him, this is how I like to do things and stuff, and then they'd make a joke. But then I noticed when we all went in game, it was kind of this cool switch, and it was nice to see with Robin. And I think this is why he's so good on the pro scene, because young kids always ask me, how do you go pro? And his attitude when you go live is he only speaks when he's giving you information or he has a suggestion, and it's very poised. And so at a young age like that, it's cool to see. I could turn, we'd lose around, that was kind of when I would chime in. I'd make fun of the boys, we'd lose around, I could see everyone gets mad, and I would make fun of them for throwing the round or something, and it kind of eases the tension a little bit, brings everyone back, but then we're all straight-faced again. So I felt like we got along pretty good, pretty fast, because they had that professionalism inside of them, and also kind of that fun atmosphere. So, I'm kind of tangenting about this, but I think Robin is actually it was really cool to see him be more than just like a kid in my eyes, in a lot of people's eyes that maybe they haven't seen that yet. But I hope they could figure something out with their team, because it was almost like they had too much power when I played with them. A lot of their issues were just like everyone wants to destroy the other team, and they have to make sure they're delegating properly, or at least like filling in the gaps when they need to. So cool kid, and definitely a bright future.
See, it's interesting that you say Chris J is a joker too, because I always thought about that, because
Joker. There's a fine line with Chris.
What was that?
There's a fine line between Chris raging and joking.
Oh, I see. Okay, you want to be careful around him. I see. Because I always.
No.
I always.
That was the best part, though. You remember the phase final? I have to just chime this in real quick before
go.
Yeah,
Go.
First phase final in Brazil. You remember? I don't know if you guys watched it. It was on Inferno or something, and there's that eco round where Chris TKs someone at B, and then rotates it back around A, and misses like the guy's like 1 HP, and he loses the 1v1 to Kerrigan. I don't know if you remember this round, and he was so mad at himself, and I just turned to him and started laughing because he whipped so hard, and like it took him a couple rounds to like no calm, but then he got back into it, and I think that was important for those guys. But yeah, he's someone I could tell where if the team, no one comes and reaches out to him, or he doesn't get back on that energy, I could see his spiraling a little, because he's so hard on himself. It was one shot he missed, and he was just like falling down, and I was like, hey brother, it's all right, we're still in this. It was like first map out of 12 maps or whatever we had to play in the finals there. So it was like, anyways.
Hey, not at all, man. That's exactly what I wanted to get. All I was gonna say is I always see like him and Paula exchanging just bizarre, strange tweets and pictures, and I always got the idea in my head that Chris J is like a crazy dude behind the scenes.
Yeah, no, well, I didn't really. I've seen him at tournaments for years and always said what up and had some brief interactions, or maybe at like an after party you talk for a few. But when you play with somebody, you get to see their personality, and then when people want to win, they kind of just focus up, and it's interesting to see how they change when they like focus up. And so it was funny to see. He's still a good dude, but you could tell he's really hard on himself when he plays.
Now, the last time we spoke on the show, which was actually a long time ago now.
About 10 months ago, I think.
Was it?
Which
you
is
check?
eight years in esports time. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
October of last year, was it?
It sounds about right. I'm trying to remember the weather outside.
My Skype logs can testify to that, because Jordan, we haven't been chatting or anything. I don't know what that's about, but
You guys haven't been keeping up, eh?
I couldn't hear him good, but I think he was saying we didn't talk much or something like that.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Now, the last time we did talk, you had sort of recently started streaming full time. Excuse me. Since then, you've continued to stream. You've been an analyst. You've been a player. You've done it all. I'm curious as to your headspace today, where you're going next.
I'm kind of on the way already, right? We're all going. I'm going in multiple directions still, in the sense that I'm actually going to be ringing for a team in a qualifier, just literally because one of their guys. It's another one of those situations where it's not like I'm trying out or something. It's just one of their guys is unavailable just for like a weekend, and that's just like a one-off thing. I'm still streaming. The influencer stuff is really cool to me because I'm not retired yet from competing, but in the meantime, there's a lot of talks all the time about the CS scene and where it's going, and is this dying? And that always tilts me on stream because I know what people mean. It's for the casual player. There's not as much flair and stuff being released constantly by Valve, and so it changes their feelings. And then all the betting stuff went down, so everyone thinks there's a lot less hype. So what's cool for me as a streamer right now is to keep educating and keep pushing kids to get better, because really what keeps the scene thriving is all of the largest group of players, they're like not super competitive guys, having fun playing it because they are trying to get better or whatever reason, and play with their friends and sense of community. So it's been fun to do that, and a lot of the influencer stuff I do right now has been with like Dream Team, who's like a team building platform, or endemic gaming companies that like are gaming products that I give away and stuff and stream. So I've created kind of a little ecosystem, and that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm not opposed to like playing again, but the problem is a lot of teams want a certain level of commitment for a certain maybe value versus like what you commit to outside of the game, and none of it has really lined up for me. I have had some offers, and they've all either like you saw the mouse sports thing, like I was maybe gonna like trial something and live in Amsterdam for a couple months, but then it was like I think they had asked like Snacks and some other NBK or something, and if they were gonna join, that makes a lot more sense for European players, especially ones that have been playing more recent. And so all these things are happening, and then I'm advising a couple companies passively, and I put out this on my stream a couple times. I thought it'd be awesome if I were to play again to create an org, but building an org is not like, hey, you want to make an org? Like, all right, cool, see that game. Like, and so I've spent actually the last year doing a lot of research on like different businesses in esports, just to see like. It's part of it is it's hard because people could talk like, oh, it's like money hungry, or because I was talking about this in my stream and someone said that. I was like, it's not money hungry. I'm literally just trying to think of like a way to interact with the scene where I could create something that was sustainable for not just me but potentially a bunch of players. Like, there's a lot of good orgs out there, but I think there's some stuff not being done yet that we don't even need to get into. But I thought it'd be really cool if I were to play again and do another hurrah with CS. How sick would it be if I owned a team, and not even just myself, maybe me and all the players owned it, or maybe a bunch of people owned it. And I had some cool ideas about crowdfunding and some content-based team platforms, and so I'm my head's kind of just like I'm kind of just keeping a bunch of different things afloat, and just enough so that I'm doing each of them justice and ready to kind of pivot at any time. At the moment,
you mentioned there. I mean, I think building an org is an interesting proposition. We've seen a lot of kind of player-owned orgs
each time I talk,
recently.
I mention like 12 things. Sorry,
We like that. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
It
I
makes
also can't see you guys, so everyone out there to wonder why I'm like looking off in the distance. I just choosing something to look at because I couldn't see these guys today.
Yeah, we are invisible to.
Well,
to
Jordan, just so you know, like if you are imagining us in your head, I'm sort of like a Brad Pitt figure, but like built more like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just for your mental
kind of
imagery.
a fight night thing, fight club thing. You kind of got the shirt open right now, little oils.
Oh yeah, Colin walks around shirtless around the office every day. The people who watch the videos, they don't see it. They make him put on a shirt for those.
It's true.
Yeah.
Cool.
What I was gonna ask is that it's interesting that you bring up the player-owned org stuff, but before I ask about that, I want to ask something you mentioned there is teams kind of maybe more interested in players who played more recently. Does it ever concern you with this idea that like, well, they want like obviously you're still a valuable player, but maybe they want someone who's played more recently, but then you're not necessarily getting the chance to play outside of kind of filling in spots. Is it concerning at all that feels like you ever feel like maybe you're falling behind in that sense?
Oh, you're saying teams want someone who's played more recent? Is that what it was?
Yeah, 'cause
part of that,
you brought it
but
up.
I think I know what you're trying to say. It's hard to hear.
Sorry.
I mean, it is what it is. I haven't really bothered being like, if I'm going to play, I'm going to play. If I'm not, I'm not. I'm doing what I'm doing. I think the difference, obviously, when you're playing actively, a lot of a lot of the things that I might be missing out on when I play right now is always like meta related talk, right? Like, you know, there's a play here on train and this smoke happens and this is how everyone reacts. Well, that's developed over time. Those kind of things, for me, it's a matter of just seeing them again once and then downloading kind of the pro level play mentally, because it's really just like a vibe, it's an energy, it's a focus, and it's like a bunch of like internal triggers when you're playing at that level. What I've noticed happens that I'm just streaming and playing pickup games a lot is I see so much of the picture so clearly with a round, but then no one's doing anything remotely to it. So I just have to drop that and just kind of just like play. And the more you do that, the more you're not thinking about all the protocols, the less fast the protocols hit you. And so obviously if I were to go back and play, like when I played with Mouse Sports in Brazil, there's a few things when I was playing, like I remember CG Side Inferno, where like every round was like weeks of information just re-downloading. Like it was just like that was the fastest download speed I could go at. Like, but it was literally like a round, and then I just remembered more than maybe most players already know. Just in like 2 rounds, I was like, oh, okay, we're back. And then I was just like, so I feel like in the last year, I feel like every week I'm losing like a year with how much CS I've played in the past. But that being said, I'm not too worried if I were to play again, because every time I'll come in and play FPL, and like I'll play a couple rounds, and I'm like, oh, like that's something that's happening. I'll get like killed in the side, and then the next round I get like 1v4, and I'm like, it's never really. Think of it like, you know, I remember who was it, like Automatic, I think one day said like you picture each player like it's a Mario Kart, right? You have all the stats, and like there's only so high of a threshold that you need to jump back into it. You just need to have like that decent mechanics. You need to have the framework for understanding the pro level play. And then you don't need aim all the way out here or this all the way out here. You just need to be able to come back in and play as a team. And I think that's why everyone always wants experience, right? Is because you come back and they just not want you to understand the round. We're going to take mid control here on Inferno. We're going to wait for the CTs to juice their utility. Then we're going to late round fake B. And if you just know how to carry yourself until that point and not die or prod for info or go for a frag even though your teammate didn't tell you to because you realize you're presented with an opportunity, that's the kind of stuff that I'm still confident in, and I think that's the key stuff playing at like tier 1, because if you're holding each other's hand the whole game, that's when you start falling behind and stuff. So I'm still pretty confident, but those other things are, you know, you can't avoid them. They're unavoidable. Just some of the little protocols that I haven't been thinking about. It would, you know, a couple weeks, month, couple events, whatever it would take. I would need to see a couple scenarios for them to be super fresh again.
Makes sense. The other thing you brought up was potentially looking at, like, you know, if coming back might be neat to do a player-owned org thing. You guys, you obviously have been playing with an old guys club. You guys have merch going on now. I kind of want to know how far you guys want to take that.
Oh, the merch. Well, that was a cool opportunity. We're not sure if we're going to even play another season. It's unfortunate, but the merch was cool because we wanted to put the sales just towards like some charity of them, and we weren't really going to go out of our way to do it, but then Double Tap guys are nice enough to kind of just put it together and say, hey, we'll do the legwork, we'll get some designs, and we'll connect to meta threads. And so it was really cool for us because just by using our platforms we were able to promote a little bit and just charity. So the hard thing was, first of all, playing open, you feel kind of bad, like you're almost like holding, like you're almost not going to your final gear. I started doing it some games because everyone's screwing around. I'm like, screw it, I'm going to go kill 4. Like, I would just, like, go push somewhere. But then you feel bad. You feel like you're taking away the kids you want to, like, get better. And we're, like, stiff-arming these little 12-year-olds in, like, football. And so we lost a couple games. There's some good players, so it was funny to see. But I guess that's also part of the problem. If someone like me and Sean or Shroudy, maybe not Shroudy so much, but, like, when you play the game again, even when you're playing open, you get a little bit like, okay, we want to play, like, remotely to what we know. Like, we know how to play this map, and you got someone like lerpz comes in who is a great friend of ours, but he hasn't played in a while. He's like, guys, we should just run this and this strat. So, like, we're, like, being pulled in these directions and just, like, this is not as fun as it could be. It's only, like, if we weren't streaming, we wouldn't even be doing this because it's all for entertainment. So if we could figure out, maybe we need a larger roster, too, because we got forfeited out of playoffs. But maybe we probably should take a higher league spot, and then maybe we probably still wouldn't practice, but we probably want to bring in like one more like recent player just to play if we're going to go to a higher level. So I don't know. Honestly, we just had a little combo the other day, but we haven't been thinking about it too much.
That's fair. That's fair. I want to ask you about, in a minute, a collaboration you've got going on with a site called Udemy. But right before I do that, you mentioned that you might be ringing for somebody. Do you have any information you could give us on that?
Just that it's an online qualifier, and nothing crazy. It's I mean, obviously everyone's gonna be like, oh, hi. So it's an online qualifier. They need a fifth, and it seems like people come to me when they just want, like, they don't want to have to, like, tell someone what to do much, but they don't want to involve them in their playbook much. Because I'm so good at seducing people, Mouse Sports ended up probably showing me more than they planned on when I put it there. No, but yeah, they just, I think, wanted someone because they don't plan, this team has no issues really, but I think they just needed someone to fill in because one of their guys out of town, and he agreed to this trip or something way in advance, and the qualifier is coming.
Well, that's exciting. We'll wait and see where you land. So, as I said earlier, you've got this collaboration going on with an org called Udemy, where you're actually going to be teaching something called Play Like CS Pro, or CSGO Pro. People are able
Just a
to...
title. Don't worry about it.
Just the title, yeah. People are going to be able to front a little cash and get some lessons from the one and only n0thing. So before you tell me exactly what they're going to get, I'm curious as to why you think that this kind of thing, training from a pro or a former pro, whatever it may be, is like A, sort of a necessity, or B, is will be successful, like why you'll get students. Is it that CS is like old and really hard and really intimidating for new people, or is it that it's really hard to break through from a certain level to a semi-pro level?
Yeah. Well, so there's all those things are kind of true. So the skill ceiling in CSGO takes a certain type of effort. Then you got people who are naturally talented with aim and mechanics, and people aren't. When you start playing all day, there's a couple things. There's some aspects of my course that I just think the reason it's valuable is because people don't think about these things until they're aware of the idea. Something like the way they should be communicating certain concise comms, right, and how your comms guide your teammate. A lot of people aren't thinking about these things in matchmake. They just say some curse word and they die and call it the exact location of the one guy. F, one's B, and then there's not really a lot of context. So there's things there I'm teaching people, stuff about how you break down the round and stuff like that. A lot of people just aren't thinking of from a solo queue perspective, and they think, oh, I don't play on a team. Oh, my solo queue teammates don't talk ever, so why would I even think along these lines? And I kind of explain why you think along those lines, because you actually end up having situations where you know where the opponent is based off a very simple process of elimination, and you playing a certain way, you'll know how your opponents are approaching the round, or you'll have an idea. And then on top of that, I think coaching in general, or like this kind of course, is cool because, sure, some intermediate or advanced guys aren't going to see novelty in any of the topics. They're going to be like, oh, I already know all this. So I think, to me, one of the big things I talk about in my course, and first of all, you could see all the topics of my course without paying for it. You could see every lecture title. So I encourage, because a couple of reviews were like, this isn't what I expected in the lectures to be. I'm like, you could have seen all the lectures before you bought it, and you could see what they're about. But I think a lot of people, I'm drawing a blank here on where I was going. Oh, a lot of people who need help with CSGO coaching. Sorry, I was pulling up my course and I drew a blank. Where was I at? What was I going to? Well, anyway, so with the course itself, so yeah, I was going to talk about, so I talk about all the round phase and everything. Why is it necessary? Well, I think a lot of people don't really have, like, at the least, it's offering you perspective, because when I'm talking about the course, I'm talking about not only in the beginning of my journey to pro, and I give people ideas about like how I networked and went pro, because that's a big thing. So even for people who aren't going pro, the latter half of the course, I think, is just an aggregated combination of mechanics and everything you would want to get better at CS. And oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. One of the things I talk about in the course is mentorship. And so that's kind of what I'm doing right here. But beyond my course, I encourage people to go watch YouTube, go play with and against better players, and then go find mentors. Because I think one of the biggest things that launched me to pro at such a young age, because everyone always asks, well, how are you so good so young? Well, it's first of all, obviously you have some talent, but then I had someone named Tyler Wilson who played for Grid 05, which is like a premier level team back in the day, and he just let me start showing me how to approach rounds with more patience and practice and what a default was and how to approach things like this. And that stuff was so valuable because it just fast forwards you to the next chapter. And you're not missing out on anything. You're actually getting the key important things. One of the biggest problems I found when I was giving lessons 101 is how many like false perceptions people have about the round based on their own intuition. Yes, CS isn't black and white. You could win the round a lot of way. But so many people will be like, I just feel like I should rotate because of this reason. I'm like, well, if you think about it, like logically, there's only two things you should really do here, and here's the probability of them. You could do either one because you don't really know what the other team's going to do, but both of these are probably your best options. And I couldn't go through every map, but I was showing people how I went through that thought process on a map, for instance. And then I talk a lot about attitude and all these things. So I guess the moral of the story is I think it's very valuable if you want to get better at something to not just go play that thing every day. Yes, when you start it, go play all the time and confidently. And even then, people find problems with CS. They go matchmake every day and they go play Face It. And a lot of my students have ladder anxiety, have insecurity about their score. And so big thing I focus on in the course is being process-oriented versus outcome-oriented. I almost think you shouldn't even be looking at your tab for the first year you're playing Counter-Strike. Like there's such a skill gap that if you're trying to find a consistent score every time you solo queue with random kids, then it just, unless you're mechanically gifted compared to everyone in the server, you're just not going to consistently drop 20, right, unless you're just better than everyone. So I kind of take the philosophy and combine it with like the mechanics. And so it is, I would say, a beginner's course, but the couple later sections with communication and attitude and round phases are stuff a lot of intermediate and advanced players probably need to make sure they're doing well when they play as well.
I presume, Jordan, that in your course you also cover how to deal with tilt or not going on tilt, because a lot of people in the Score eSports office could probably use that lesson.
Inner office battles over here or what?
Look, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying I am. Am I 2 and 3 in 1v1s here? I forget.
Yeah,
I think
like
so.
that. Something like that. Now, to be fair, that's because every time you guys lose in matchmaking, somebody calls to 1v1 someone else to blame them for being bad.
That's real.
Yeah, I mean, so instead of making a lecture called just like how not to tilt, and honestly, so I have the ability to add lectures. So I'm taking feedback right now, and a couple people have asked that specifically. And I told them to rewatch the video on the attitude part. Because I just tell people, again, I remind them, don't stop. Everyone's so focused on the win or the loss or their score. I'm like, it sounds counterintuitive. It's okay to have a goal. You want to get to a higher rank. You want to win more games. But you can't react to your goal as much as you have to react to the process. How did you die? Keep doing that thing with confidence. Die as much as you can. Learn how you're dying every way. And stop being so caught up with the death itself, but more how you die in the process. Because if you're going to get better, you're not going to get better through losing confidence, through insecurity about your plays, through getting frustrated. A lot of people, I think, even at a pro level, even a lot of these pro players, I think they justify their frustration and anger because that's what's going to fuel them to do the thing better next time. Yeah, we need to get super mad that we died. Otherwise, we're not going to focus up next round. And it's like that you don't. It's unfortunate maybe you were raised that way or something made you that way in early sports teams or something. But like if you just look at what happened, it was either your fault or you can control it, or it wasn't your fault and it was your teammate's fault, and your teammate probably didn't mean to make you die. So your anger is just misguided, and you need to learn to watch the anger and not react to it as much. Like a movie that you don't like, you just kind of start watching it and like, oh, whatever, like, oh, okay, like, and so I've just been trying to, like, I even cite meditation to people. I'm like, you don't need to be meditating 10 times a day, but meditate is like even twice in the next year, just to understand the concept of when you come out of a thought and you just let it pass. It's super powerful. And so I think a lot of people, I think it's as simple as people need to get mad to motivate themselves because otherwise they don't feel anything when they don't win. It's not the normal release of like, oh, we won. And so like, oh, we didn't win. Anger. And so I was trying to get people more like, that's where ladder anxiety comes from. Everyone's so scared of losing. And then and I'm scared to foray into this right now, so I'm going to say don't foray into this. But I was talking about guys versus girls gaming and how and how girls are so hard on themselves, and a lot of times when they come up, they play the same spot every round because they try to just get good at one thing. And girls are so meticulous that I feel like sometimes the girls that have this more like confident approach to the game are the ones who get good and they get to the top of their scene. And I don't want to dive into too much, but I was like, that seems to just be more prevalent because for whatever reason this happens to a lot of girls, I'm saying. But everyone's gonna be like, nothing's making a claim about women gamers. No, but it was a concept with a lot of beginning guys who have the same problem. But it was more just I noticed a lot of beginners across the board when they try to play too safe and they try to play too smart, and then they're also very insecure about the result. It's just such a slow building process for them to get better because they're so timid when they approach it. I'm like, you need to die as much as you can with as much confidence for like a year straight before you expect to be anything at CS. And so I think that's a good approach. And I honestly got that from reading like Mind Gym by Gary Mack, which he's like a pro sports athlete who like he does a lot of MLB teams, NBA teams, and a couple other books from guys who are like self-help guys, but mental guys. And then you watch and you do watch these a lot of YouTube stuff. So I'm not preaching some like original idea necessarily here. I don't want it to sound like that. It's just more everyone asks how not to tilt. Like it's a simple thing. Well, stare to your left, blink twice, and then look back at your screen. You're fine. Like, it's just like there's not really one trick. I think it's just mastering yourself reacting to something and knowing what the end goal is. And I think I put so much I rant like this so much on my course too because I think a lot of it is just your perspective. And so I just try to share perspective with an example of like, okay, you're trying to get better in the ladder. So the last section's all about like playing and reflecting and your attitude and how to approach practice on the course.
That's actually some great advice about focusing on the process, because I actually recently experienced in a different FPS, I was just playing on a Smurf account, and I realized how little I cared about the actual result of the game, but I was still trying to improve with what I was doing. And I love that idea, like just let go of the scoreboard, just let go of it, and just play the game to the best of your ability. I think,
yeah, and I can see why it's not easy for everyone to do, right? It's like it's a natural feeling, but you did that because you were probably smurfing, and then you probably got that feeling of, oh shit, like that was pretty liberating.
I was actually smurfing on like a really horrible character in that game, and the worst one. And I was doing it for a project we were doing actually in the office, and it felt great because it's like I died, I know why I died, and also this character sucks. And I wasn't really blaming the character, which I guess I kind of made it sound like I was blaming the character there.
You just acknowledge it, yeah.
Yeah, I was just acknowledging the situation. But anyway, sorry, I don't want to go off on a crazy tangent. I actually want
show, guys.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I want to ask a little bit whether, you've been up to a lot. We've already talked about the variety of things you've been up to. Is it possible we're going to see you again on the desk in London?
Well, unfortunately, I don't know. If you noticed, Faceit announced it. I'm not on the list, so Faceit did announce it. They had invited me, but I don't know why, something in my mind thought, I don't know how I've known these dates for a while, but I just was confused on when the actual final stage of the major started, because now they're doing like the Challenge, Legend, whatever stages. And for some reason, I thought, like, oh, I'm available after the 16th. Everything's fine. But, like, and so I agreed to do some promo with a pretty awesome company before that for my stream up to, like, the 12th or 13th. And thought, oh, I'll just, like, fly to London after the weekend. And then I got asked to do those first stages, like 5th through 12th. And I was like, oh, shit. So I don't know. I'm actually working on maybe being involved in the major, but I don't know if we'll be on the analyst desk or commentating, which sounds weird. So we're figuring something out. But unfortunately, no, I was kind of bummed that I couldn't work that out because I like to pick and choose what events I analyze at. And I like Faceit's events generally. Not saying I don't like other events, but I noticed on their events I seem to get to ramble a lot more, and you can tell, obviously, I like to do that. And on the desk, I feel like I get more flow. And maybe the major will be different, but I remember I really enjoyed the laxness of their desk, so it's unfortunate.
I want to maybe, if it's all right with you, go back to the last major mentally. You obviously had the analysis gig for part of it, but I imagine that you were following it pretty closely in any case, because we got to see our first NA major champion in CSGO, which was pretty great. And I wanted to ask, what was it like for you, having played with so many of those guys, to see them win?
It was weird, right? Because, like, you know, at the first stage of the tournament, I was telling people, like, on my stream, I was like, obviously I couldn't lie. Like, it was kind of funny to see Cloud9 start 0-2 and almost go out. I was like, wow, like, because there's a lot of issues that we had on the team. And so, to me, I was like, there's no way that these problems, like, they're living in, like, La La Land, whatever happens in this tournament. They're living in La La Land. Like, these problems are still permeating the team. So I saw them losing, and I was like, oh, okay, they're going to see these issues in their face right now. And they started coming back and winning. I was like, this is insane. So I don't know if it was necessarily like a jealousy. It was more just kind of like, I think I was a little bit bitter, you know, just being honest with myself with some of the way things went down. But then when I saw them win, like, for instance, I think Tyler being on stage at the end was like a really positive feeling for me, because I was like, I love Tyler, and I just was like, oh, sick, man. Like, he is emotional. He won this. And Tyler hadn't even made it out of a group before at a major. So it was cool to see that. I think in some senses of the team, like, I was watching them win, and just the way the whole org was functioning at the time was so weird. Like all the management, like, runs on stage right away. I'm like, get out of their picture. Like, this is, like, just let them, like, have a photo. And then some of the problems the team had, like, some of the guys weren't even happy after they won the major, for instance. Like, I'm not going to go into it, but, like, they had some issues. And they won a major and they weren't even happy. I'm like, that's literally, like, the epitome of the problem I had with the team. And just a bunch of weird personal things happening that didn't see. So when I started analyzing the tournament after, and everyone always says it sounds bitter, so please don't make this the headline of our podcast. I'm asking you, and because it's not really necessarily a headline. It's more just that, like, I feel like, I don't know. I was almost gonna. It sounds so bitter. I would almost say that our Brazil win was just as difficult or more than their win, even though they came back and won. But it was just the teams they had to beat. Like, yeah, FaZe was definitely, that was epic, and so no one could take that away from them. But, like, the G2 win and the previous wins in the group, I was like, G2 just had Shock start calling, like, on a whim that event. The other teams they played, it was like, And so, like, I was like, yeah, it was impressive, but, like, eventually, like, they were functioning under a lot of issues, which is amazing. So it was definitely a case of that kind of honeymoon period where no one can discount how good those guys are when they're on point. Stewie with playmaking, Tarek with, even after round, Rush's just tightness as a rifler and his ability to win clutches and get big frags, Tim's ability to kind of read the game and make huge plays, Tyler's ability to be such a powerful operator against any rifler team or whenever he has around objects. Tyler's excelling at just, like, being in the mix. And so, like, no one could take away what they did. But I remember, like, watching, I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, I'm curious to see how their team's going to go. Because at a pro level of CS, as you see with a lot of teams, if you have a bunch of star players, it doesn't matter if they're not meshing. And I was, like, interested how these guys were going to mesh. I was like, oh, maybe something's working out now. Because these attitudes of, like, Tarek and Rush, Tarek's kind of carefree, so maybe that works in a way. And Rush is kind of firm, so in a weird way, that works. And you guys don't know exactly what I'm referring to, but there's these things on the team that's hard for me to talk about because I kind of have the locker room hockey player approach. I don't like to fully divulge everything, but there's these things on the team. I'm like, oh, maybe this will work out. And it sounded, I was talking to someone behind the scenes, and it was kind of working out. And then I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, maybe we're going to see these guys go for a role. And, like, that's where me as a person, I was like, maybe I was bitter as a person. But maybe for this team, I had to acknowledge this way earlier, Jordan, this is what was best. Like, these guys are functioning because, you know, a lot of people think the reason I was removed was because, like, I was, like, forgetting nades. There's some weird rumors that go around the community, which is obviously false. My participation in practice, I was probably one of the few guys who would try to help, like, Tim and Stu, or whoever was calling at the time, try to be there available to do work. So it was honestly because we were clashing so much personality-wise that we made the change, and that's the biggest thing on a pro team. So I was curious to see that happen with them, and then, of course, after the major lost, you know, with without getting too specific, people still not happy. Like, how's that possible? And then the problems just kept permeating the team, and then, of course, it led to what it led to. So it's just so interesting to use that as an example, I guess, to transition out of talking about all that shit without so I don't seem too bitter about it. But no, and honestly, I wasn't really. And even thinking about it, obviously, just wish I won a major, like every player wishes they won a major, but not like, oh, fuck these guys. Like, I think it was actually best that the team made those decisions to part ways. I probably should have left the team earlier or changed something on the team earlier when I had a little bit more say in what would have happened. But beyond that, it's interesting how teams are so delicate with the mouse sports thing. Without tooting my own horn, I don't even think I played that great necessarily in Brazil, but I think just the fact that someone was willing to fill the holes to allow someone like Sonny, ropz, or Chris to Stico, great credit to Martin too. Stico does this really well. Such a selfless guy in game. I think some teams, they just need that to open it up. It's so hard when you just try to make these super teams. I heard one time a year ago that there was some talks of a Cold Zero, Nico, or someone super team, and honestly I'm I don't think these guys will win much. I think they're going to end up being one of those teams that crush it the first land, and then they're always in the semis, and then lose to a Navi or a team that's just a little bit more put together, even if they're relying on something Simple. But it's interesting, I guess, just kind of thinking out loud since we're on a podcast. That's what you do here is you tangent constantly. But how teams are affected by what's perceived on paper as a super solid group of skilled players, but then behind the scene, there's this. Without getting specific, on Mao's, there's this issue they had when I played with them that I just immediately was like, oh, I'll do all those things for you. They're talking about their issues. I was like, oh, done. They're like, okay, and then they didn't. I don't think they believed it. Every game, I was just like, I'm doing this here, and I just throw myself in positions that I knew that ropz and Sonny and these guys wanted, and then these guys are animals. ropz is a Shroudy, his aim is fucking apeshit. And, the question that I have 50 HP and ropz has 50 HP and I'm gonna bait this kid going into bomb side, I went, no, fucking hold on to my hand, buddy. We're running in right now. ropz comes in and just fucking blows everyone away. Because I obviously have the ability to get kills, but I more so have an ability to get the kill that matters and the timing that matters. So if I just kill the timing, you have someone who comes behind you and murders everyone, and he loves it. The kid loves the game. He's intimate. He's probably dreaming about scenarios every day like I did when I was his age. And even though I'm not that same person, I still have a lot of great skill sets, and I fit in this area. And I'm using myself as an example because I have just an intimate memory of what that scenario was. But there's a lot of players on teams. Zivnix is just a textbook representation of someone who turned a system from his style into it. So now the team, they have a lot of good reciprocation on Astralis. I think that's why they're winning so much, is because it isn't super ego-based in their system. And so I think it's always interesting to look at how these teams are affected by people's willingness to fill gaps and not just do what they're always comfortable in and stuff.
I don't want to linger on the topic too much, Jordan, but I wanted to ask, as you were watching that Cloud9 run through the bracket at Boston, was there a specific moment? Obviously you had knowledge of everything going on behind the scenes previously. Was there a specific moment where you realized they could win it? Where you were like, this could definitely happen?
Well, they were playing G2. I went to watch the Farmers Insurance Open. I was following Tiger Woods all weekend. They were here in San Diego, so I was at the golf tournament. So I didn't watch much right during, but I remember from an outside perspective, just looking at the stats when they were playing G2, I was like, Shock started calling, and G2 was blowing people away in groups. But then they hit semis, and when the pressure builds up and you have a novelty in your situation, it either makes or breaks your team, right? The honeymoon either carries you or it kind of limits you in that sense. And I felt like for Shocks and them, they had just hit this point in their team where they were limited now, and I don't know how to say that exactly because I'm not on G2. And I saw them win, and I was like, FaZe kind of chokes. C9 beat G2. There's a chance C9 wins this. And I kind of just said that. And I remember, I don't know if I was talking to my dad or something, and he's like, nah, I think they'll choke. And they kind of did at one point, but then they held on. They literally all held on by a string, and they came back. And I rewatched some of it because I was literally at the golf tournament, and I came in just to watch the finals. I was like, I think they're about to win. And then I watched the ceremony with Tyler. But Yeah, I was after G2. I wasn't sure. The phase match was so weird to me. And then I think was it FaZe who messed up the veto? Like they allowed, I forget what it was. I don't even remember what it was exactly. They should have. This is where Thorin comes in handy whenever I'm on like a desk. Like Thorin just has like the picture memory of everything that was when happened. Kerrigan vetoed this map, and then he blew his nose into a tissue, and then he reached over to rob it. But I remember, I think they should have vetoed Cash, or they should have played Cash for C9. I forget the scenario, or G2. And I remember a couple teams being like, "Oh shit!" And when that happened, I was like, "Whoa!" Like I kind of saw the pieces coming together because, like I said, that major was the collection of between G2, Cloud9. Who was the other team in semis? G2, Cloud9, FaZe. Was it Navi?
So
it was just interesting situations in all the teams to where it's really just like whoever showed up, and there were some contingencies that could have led a team either way. But yeah, it was interesting. And watching them, I was just like, yeah, it's possible for all these teams right now to win.
Okay. I just wanted to ask if there was a specific moment. Obviously, you have an intimate understanding of some of the team dynamic, obviously, before you were removed, so that's cool. Thanks very much for the insight, Jordan.
Now, since we're burning a little bit of time here, I did want to wind down on like a more relaxed note, maybe is the word. And when you earlier in the podcast, Jordan, were telling us about ropz and how he's goofing around, and Chris J as well, it kind of reminded me of this really brief story you told on stream, where it was like Stewie was asleep and you stretched your arms or something, and he said, "Shut the fuck up," and then you threw his shit out the window.
I didn't throw shit out the window. No, I just dumped his bed. Like, we're on like twin beds in Europe or something, right? They're small frames. So I think I just like picked up the side of his bed and ripped off his comforter. So me and Stewie, ironically, I'm maybe aside from his new teammates, I'm probably one of the closest to Stu in the CS scene in terms of how close I got to him and how much I know about his personal life and how much we talked about that kind of stuff. Because we were so open, it was this very brotherly, and I've talked about this on stream. Stu's like, "Stop calling me out, bro," and he knows. I was like, I didn't do anything except say the truth, brother. And so he accepts it at this point. But yeah, he was very angry at one point. A lot of the team's problems, we just put him on a short fuse, and so we were just no headlines there either, please, come on. And yeah, so he was just frustrated, and we were like boot camping before like the PGL major and literally I was stretching, and he apparently was a lot of stretch, and everyone's like, I saw some of the comments in that video like, "Nothing has to be wear though, people might be tired from jet lag and sleeping." I was like, no, it was like a couple weeks into the trip, and he was already pretty much awake, and I was he was just mad, and it's all right, and so I still talk to, I think I FaceTimed Stu the other day, and I was talking to him about some shit, and we were just like catching up about something. So yeah, that was part of the issue on the team, right? It's not necessarily the only reason. Everyone's like, "Oh, Stewie cut nothing." Well, it wasn't like that. But me and Stewie definitely, we're talking about the attitude thing, and he's actually come a long way. He was someone who just and I think he played basketball competitively. He was someone who just so firmly believed everyone needed to be yelled at. Not just me, but everyone when something went wrong, no matter whether they meant to do it or not, or if it was the first time or the fifth time they did this mistake, it was kind of like, "What the fuck, bro? Like, why? What? How could you let that happen? That's so dumb and obvious and this and that." It's like, I'm sure this person didn't want to miss that flash, or they didn't want to miss that frag. And so we always had this difference in approach. Like, "Hey, man, just chill. Like, they didn't mean this to happen." "Okay, well, it's stupid. We shouldn't be out of groups." I'm like, "Yeah, we all wish we were still in this tournament." Like, no one's saying we shouldn't. So that was only one part of the issue. But ironically, that wasn't like Stu's ultimatum to cut me. A lot of people thought that was the reason.
Jordan, if you'll indulge me a little bit here, and I promise it won't be the headline. I'm putting my hands together right now. You can't see them, but I promise it won't be.
Yeah, can it be like n0thing launches new CS course and more or something? Like,
and more. Can we make it a little spicier than that? And more, tell the people what they're getting.
I'll promise some social media posts if you remove all clickbait from the title.
Okay, fair enough. But I was wondering if you could either sort of like go through a retelling of that in like a little more detailed way, because on the stream it was pretty quick, right? Or if you could just tell me, it doesn't have to be about Stu at all, just one of your favorite stories from back in the day, like a team house story, an event story.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stories, and that one with Stu was actually ended up being kind of funny, but at the time it wasn't, because there was a lot of stress on the team. So I'm not going to recount that one. That was just pretty much what it was. And dude, it's just like flooding. I want to tell like 5 different things. I don't know. I remember when Tim first joined the team, we came up to our team house. He drove up from San Diego, and my room was in the far end of the house, and I put on some like creaky horse music on just my computer, turned off the power switches to every other part in the house, left it open, kind of fucked some stuff up in the doorway, left the front door open, and just made it seem like our house was empty. We all lied and said we were going to the gym. It said like our manager was home, but like the door is open and there's some weird like sound with like a scream every like 45 seconds on the far end of my computer, and we all like hid in closets when he drove up to the team house and tried to spook him, but he literally wouldn't come into the house. He just kept staying in the doorway and then walking out the door. He was like terrified to walk in, and so we're all just sitting in the closets, just like occasional, like we all put our phones on silent, and like after like 10 minutes we all text each other like, should we like come out? Or like, we're like, oh shit. That was kind of funny. And then that was one of the more wholesome ones, I guess. And then eventually he just like was like, what's going on, guys? And then like I think like Shroudy, I don't know who did, like just was like boo, and like ran out him and Tim just sitting there like straight face or something. And then I don't know, dude, on the road we used to mess around, like when it was like the Sean rendition and Trace and Stunna. Like Stunna was a germaphobe, so anytime we'd like mess with his food, and he'd get so mad. You know, I remember literally like a 3-mile run around Stockholm because I put my finger in Stunna's like Whopper at Burger King. I literally sprinted through the whole city running away from Trace. Everyone was like, "What is happening?" And I don't know, so many stupid videos. I remember in Sweden that same trip, like bring your own condiments to Subway. And I had them all in my big snow jacket because they only have like Dijon mustard and they didn't have like any more mayo, and we just asked for a sandwich. So I went to the store and bought all these condiments, and they asked what I want in my sandwich, and I just whipped out like mayo, mustard, and like all these other things. And I was like, is this okay? And they're like, a manager like approved me making the sandwich. I don't know, just like constantly. I was probably the source of a lot of these dumb things, but Skadoodle's hilarious in person. I've had you guys probably think I'm the only one to freestyle, but Tyler's really good at beatboxing. So there's been a couple of times where I wish I had this on camera when we're in hotel rooms, where Tyler's went off on like a freestyle with me and then a beatbox, and then I switch and do the beat and he does a freestyle. I'm like, Tyler, that's 1 million views right there. Just let me turn on the camera. And he's like, no, I won't. Oh my God, fuck. You know, and he's just so just a lot of clown around. I told the Shroud story the other day where he's in Stockholm as well. All this shit happens in Sweden, and we were in these big like Euro hotel rooms where the whole wall is like a mirror. And Shroudy gets out, and he's just in his boxers walking around, and he's kind of got his little like gamer posture, and he faces his ass towards the mirror and looks over his shoulder at me. He's like, Jordan, I got a fat ass, don't I? And I was just like, I think you kind of do, Mike. You need to get on the treadmill, bud. And so whenever people ask me to tell a story, a lot of the stories have to do with someone else, and I like need their permission. But a lot of these little moments, there's so many moments like that where I did a lot of vlogging and a lot of clips that I didn't release. Just so much stupid footage of us like messing around like a laundromat or stupid shit like that. So a lot of good times. And that's, people always ask me what were the best parts about being a pro gamer, and like the two main things I say have nothing to do with competition, which is one, hanging out with the boys and being on a team and like kind of like building that chemistry and those vibes and all those memories together. And then two, the fans, like people who don't even know you come and put their best foot forward to meet me, who they don't know if I'm a real good person, but they assume I am. And so it makes me a better person because I kind of want to feed into that, and I want to be a good person, a good example for people. So those are honestly the two dopest things. Obviously, the ego, fulfillment, and rush you get from playing on stage is fucking epic. And like beating somebody at something for your job is pretty awesome. You don't get the chance to be like, I did a better job than Dan while in my marketing this week. Fuck you and your marketing report. Like, my report was better. Like, you get that from competition, and it's pretty awesome. But honestly, those other two things are one of the most like fun part about being a pro gamer.
Fair enough, man. Those were some good stories, man. That stream of consciousness. Can confirm, by the way, if you film those rap battles, that is 1 million views.
Oh, dude, come on. It's good. And Tyler, and the funniest thing is because, even though we're in closed doors, Tyler still has a little bit of like insecurity in his body language. So he's kind of like closed in as he's rapping, but it's still so funny because he'll randomly, as he's feeling himself, like 10, 15 seconds in, he'll kind of start releasing and start rapping a little bit more uppity. And I'm like, oh, shit, get it, Tyler. And then he like stops, and I'm like, oh, no. But then like, it's so funny when he does that. And I could tell, like, even me telling the story probably makes him like feel uneasy about it because he's so funny about like, he reserves his kind of like social self for his like close group of friends. So he's come out of his shell quite a bit though. It's been fun to watch.
Good point about the vlogs actually, Jordan, because I remember I was working on a project about swag, and I looked at your vlog from when you guys went to Summit, and I remember that video opens with him just like dancing in a parking lot, and I was like, this is gonna be a trip right here. This is gonna be some good shit, and it ended up being like really funny, and there were lots of little cool moments in it for sure. So I can only imagine what you have to cut.
I get so many comments about how those vlogs were like a big part of like people's like following the scene. They watch all the vlogs, and so it was really cool because I was always so, I don't know why I didn't vlog sooner, but I always thought it was gonna like be this whole project that took away from like the tournaments and I wouldn't be able to do it. And then I realized like if you literally just like everywhere you're going outside of practice for the tournament and playing, like obviously you have to warm up and do this shit. If you just literally hold this little camera out, you're going to get like 45 minutes of footage, and at least 15 minutes of it will be like a vlog. And so that's how it ended up being. I would just literally hold the camera. Some of the footage my editor messaged me, he's like, bro, hold the camera still. This shit is so shaky. Because I'm like not even caring about vlogging. But then it ends up being decent vlogs. And some of these vlogs, 2.5 million views, 500K, 400K, 500K, 400K, 1 million. Like I was like, holy shit. Like I didn't think they would be enjoyed that much. So that was actually a cool thing that I was happy I did before I stopped competing then. Not necessarily that I'm done, but like, I've been pro since 2008, never started vlogging until like 2016. So it was cool to do those. I really liked it.
Jordan, thank you so much for making time for the theScore eSports podcast. It really is always a pleasure, and like you said, we love an excuse to talk a little bit about CS, so thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, have a good one, man.
Take care.
All right, cheers, fellas.
Well, guys, that was a great little chat, actually.
Yeah,
I thought
that was great. I like the idea that Skadoodle is basically the Michigan J Frog of the Counter-Strike world.
Michigan J Frog, like that guy from Looney Tunes.
Yeah, the one that only sings when you're not looking
Hello,
at
my
him.
baby, that guy.
Exactly.
I love how n0thing he was like constantly apologizing for going on tangents, but it's like, no, these are good.
This is
like,
what we want.
This is
it's
what
like
an
a
interview.
thing you notice a lot in interviews where like somebody's just like, oh, I'm sorry, I kind of went off topic. Like, no, that's what I want. You answer like 5 questions at once. That's efficiency.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than like, when you're talking to someone and it's like, yes, I don't know. No,
Yeah, just like 3-word answers.
Jordan gives you gold.
Absolutely.
Well, you should also, I mean, if they can answer all your questions with like yes, no, I don't know, then maybe rephrase that question slightly.
Ooh, there's no such thing as bad students, only bad teachers kind of thing, right?
Well, I don't know. Don't ask yes or no questions if you can help it.
Well,
I mean,
sure.
we did ask a couple, but I wanted to know about his attendance at the major. Sounds
Yeah.
like maybe they could figure something out. I'd be looking forward to that.
Well, he did say that he was going to be playing for a team in some kind of online qualifier. I don't know what that's going to be. Maybe it's during the major, maybe not. I don't know what duties are going to be overlapping, but yes, I do hope we see him.
Hopefully. And speaking of good teachers, hopefully people also check out, his interesting course.
Yeah, that's right. And read that table of contents. Damn, guys. We should wrap this bad boy up. So once again, thank you so much to our guest, Jordan Gilbert, n0thing, for joining us. And for Josh Burry, for Daniel Rosen, I'm Colin saying until next time, GG.